My name is Ulla von Brandenburg. I studied first in Karlsruhe scenography at the HFG, and then I switched to art to the Publikation in Hamburg. I'm sitting here in the office in the Kunstakademie Karlsruhe, and I have a professorship since 6 years, and I have a class for drawing and painting. I use a lot of textiles in my work. They appear with costumes in films or performances. They are in installations. They are in films, animated, and also, of course, in performances. Textiles are important for all of us. It's like our first house is what we wear, our clothing. And it's also the first material we have when we are born. We are wrapped in a piece of fabric, and the same happens when we're dead. There is this important text from Foucault about heterotypes, where he is describing the other locations, and the first other location, what also a lot of us know as the bed of our parents, where we are hiding in the bed sheets. And what I try with these textiles is to create heterotypes and different spaces. Quilts exist in all cultures and in all ages because it's about recycling and recycling fabric and all tiny bits and pieces. But of course, it's not only about recycling fabric, it's also about recycling history, because all these bits and pieces of these different fabrics have different histories. The quilt making was also in my family very important, because my grandmother did already quilts, and my grandmother and my mother, and I am kind of raised up in all these kind of different patchwork materials. And also, of course, all these different histories of the family and of the fabrics which were having a role in the family. So my grandmother was already saying about the pieces from my great-grandmother, which kind of dresses or stories also linked to these dresses were woven into this quilt. Clothing is also a very interesting point with textile, especially for the quilts. I worked a lot with old clothing. I have a big collection of clothing, and I'm very interested in fabric, materials, patterns, thought of cuts of clothing. And I did this installation and performance in the Kunstverein Kassel, where different performers wear different kind of costumes and found the typical movement for this costume. Flying Geese is a spatial installation, and these 7 quilts are like 7 stations to see, and it's really important to move through these 7 quilts hanging from the ceiling, and to go around and also see the back of the quilts, because the back, there you see the quilting stitch, which goes through all layers of the blanket. There's also a time element, because it takes time to go through. There is a way the visitors are passing through. And this time, of course, has a lot to do with how these quilts were made, because all sewing, quilt making, stitching takes a lot of time. Being 2009 in Memphis was a big shock, because I saw how much Afro-American people are segregated and how much racism is everywhere, every day. And I found a book with the title Hidden in Plain View, and I was very triggered by this story because I didn't know it before at all. The book describes an organization which is called Underground Railroad, which helped slaves to escape to freedom, whether in free slave states in the north of America or to Canada. And these quilts specifically had encoded messages. There are a lot of different patterns which existed already before, but then they got codes. There were also Amish people a lot involved, which had already a great quilt tradition. People who took part in this organization hang them in front of their house or at their barn to make a sign that this is, for example, a safe house or other important informations. This story triggered my history with quilts. And for me, it was important to sew these two histories together. The patterns on these 7 quilts are very much blown up. They're completely enlarged so that each single pattern gets like a sign or a signal. And these stitches look, of course, also like paths and ways which are crossing each other. And they come in the end to the film The Objects, which is a film which is prolonging in a way the path the spectators did with other kind of stations.